Today I'm talking about the prevalence of homophobia and transphobia in hip-hop, but I'm also talking about queer positivity in hip-hop. There's a lot of both. I'm Sophia Cody. Thank you for your time, and please critique and comment in the comment section. Thank you. Queer sexuality and gender are completely appropriate and digestible for all ages, or should be seen as such, but a lot of rappers act like their lifestyles or identities are better suited for the public than other people's. MF Doom compares and likens homosexuality to pedophilia. Nicki Minaj, who's also dating a rapist, says we inconsistently represent ourselves, which is a similar argument to calling trans women traps. And she talks down on men who wear dresses. DaBaby says people with AIDS are nasty. Eminem has used the F slur a lot, but fails to accept responsibility for its damage. TR Wax says trans women are, quote, boys acting like a bitch. Some of my favorite rappers are standouts against these trends. Andre 3000 acknowledges his fashion sense is similar to queer people, but doesn't say no homo or even faggot to prove he's unlike us in other ways. Earl Sweatshirt used the F slur in his first tape, but has since stopped and now speaks on supporting and loving his queer mom. Jay-Z does the same, and No Name has mentioned trans death as a serious problem. Hip-hop is conflicted on who's allowed in their club, especially when it comes to queer people. Should we stop listening to homophobic musicians? Many claim they aren't, yet they don't rap about queer issues or work with queer rappers like Lil Nas X, Young M.A., Quay-Dash, Censored Dialogue, Backwash, and Frank Ocean. That's what queer rappers and listeners need most of all: support. We need larger voices to listen to us and help us fight the patriarchy together, because most people don't even see queerphobia as part of the patriarchy. Harriet Williamson says, homophobia and misogyny, just like racism and misogyny, are inextricably interlinked. She also says lesbians are fetishized and still seen as sexual objects by men. So I restate, should we stop listening to bigoted rappers? Should rappers, as poets, be held to a higher bar or higher standard than other musicians who may care less about the pen? I don't think so, and regardless of incidental homophobia, I choose to still listen to MF Doom at times. But with artists like Azealia Banks, who have gone on hateful tirades, I avoid them entirely. Kid Rock, a rocker, called his listeners faggots for being on their phones. Unfortunately, because I wasn't a fan of his before, I will now never listen to him at all. Am I showing favoritism? Yes, I admit I am. Doom used the word faggot multiple times in the song Batty Boys. I don't know if he technically said it himself or if he played snippets said by other homophobes, but the point is moot. Sweatshirt, on the other hand, was a teenager and a rapper I very much like, so I give him a pass too. This makes me start to doubt whether or not I'm a good source to speak on an issue I'm, apparently, iffy on. Is being queer alone enough to make my opinion valid, or must I be without contradiction? As a counterpoint, I can give myself credit for caring more when cis people say tranny than when cis-hets say faggot. So Wax and Banks' transphobia bothers me more than Sweatshirt and Doom's blatant homophobia with transphobic implications. And to speak on my previous video, Chappelle saying tranny didn't offend me because he was talking about the word, not calling someone or my people it necessarily, although he has in the past. I'm more offended by hatred than I am by plain discussion, no matter the words used. Now, we move on to the word bitch. Should cishet men be able to say it? Should men at all? I wouldn't categorize it as a slur, at all. So maybe we can criticize how men say it, but not that men say it at all. I definitely don't mind it being used in place of girlfriend, but if you're using it to insult queer people without getting in trouble for technically saying faggot, then I am offended. People who are assigned male at birth are often called bitch for how they dress. My mom called me it often as a young child because I was quiet, artistic, and liked girls' stories and toys. Queer people have to deal with being called bitch their whole life. Shouldn't art be an escape? Again, it's not the literal word I find offensive. I'm not technically offended by cis people using tranny. I'm offended by hatred. Homophobia is often used to belittle people, which is embarrassing for cis-hets but dangerous for queers. We're killed all over the world, no thanks to a lot of rappers, rockers, actors, writers, and especially politicians. People's morals follow laws, and it wasn't until very recently that, in America, it was illegal to cross-dress to certain extents, and sodomy used to be a good enough excuse for execution. It still is for murder. Very recently, a popular transphobe called for trannies to be lynched. People, Boosie for example, see us as inappropriate for children. In 2007, half of Americans said it was bad for society for gays to raise children, according to Pew Research. Again, when Doom chose to talk about homosexuality, he didn't speak on our strengths and passion for art or anything like that. He spoke as if we have a history of targeting minors, when most find that we do so far less often than cis-hets. Casual homophobia in hip-hop is bad for queers in further ways than bullying, although please note queer children have higher rates of suicide than cis-het children. Lesbians are often attacked by men simply for holding hands, a privilege cis-het couples take for granted. They can even be seen kissing and groping in public, when many queers have a right to be scared to do so. Our music, more often than not, doesn't help. Hip-hop and rock have a long history of homophobia and transphobia, with few standouts that come with their own pains. Lola, by the Kinks, says the trans woman the speaker has sex with walks like a woman but talks like a man, and girls will be boys and boys will be girls, rather than appreciating that she fully was a woman, as she most likely feels. Whereas Quaydash, a trans rapper, compliments the men she has sex with. She's proud of their confidence and dedication. There is a lot of queer positivity in hip-hop. I just wish it was overwhelming. The suicide problems in queer people I touched on disappears when queer people are simply accepted by friends, family, and society as a whole. Although art is not as directly serious as other topics, it is important. Queer people need queer therapists, queer doctors, and even queer rappers to listen to. When queer people are aided by queer people, they aren't mistreated. This goes doubly for queers of color. So we need more black trans rappers like the ones I mentioned before, but we need them in the mainstream. We need them on the cover of magazines. We need them winning Grammys. We need them dating Pete Davidson. Just kidding. T for T always. I'd love to see successful trans rappers, and I hope you would too.